All right. All right. So welcome. I think this is the fifth episode. I should probably know things like this, but I will fix that. But this is Joanna. And the interesting thing is that I've known her since high school, but we were like friends of friends. So never really super close, but I follow her on Instagram. She has a great page. She's always like doing the thing. And I had found out through her Instagram that she also had HA. And when I was sharing my story, she was actually one of the only people that were like, oh yeah, I know what this is. Gain weight and you'll be fine. Right. And in the moment I was like, what are you like? How do you know? So that's how this came to be. So tell us about your page. Tell us about kind of like your jam, and then like we'll kind of get into it.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Joanna. Everyone calls me Joe. But yeah, I am a nutrition, fitness, and I call myself a mindset coach because really that's more of what I do. Yes, I will give you fitness and nutrition plans. It's what I love, but I am more focused on like the mindset that comes with a balanced, harmonious lifestyle that does not involve working out 2 hours a day and thinking about food all the time.
Yeah.
So that was me. And
Yeah,
so
right.
that's why I do what I do. And so that's just kind of like my goal is to help women to realize. Let me turn off my notifications. I'm so sorry.
No worries. This is real, raw, and unfiltered in every way.
Okay.
like you can hear Nuggy, but we're here.
Yeah, my goal like with women is to show them that they can live a healthy and harmonious lifestyle without being crazy with their food and without thinking about food all the time, and that working out 2 hours a day and restricting your cal is just not normal. It's not normal, it's not healthy, and you should have a period.
Yeah. So I definitely want to circle back into this because I know that there's many fitness professionals, fitness coaches that kind of, I mean, I know for me, I have like a freak out moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this to myself. What if I've done this to other people? But back then, like nobody cared about their period, right? So no one would have even like told me. And even if they did, then that's when I help them get their cycle back. But so many people just don't even think to even bring it up to like their coach.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, so that's a whole tangent, but like, do you think that impacts like your journey through HA? And then like, we'll get into all that had now impacts the way you coach and why you coach the way you coach?
500%, because when I was competing, I was doing like bikini and bodybuilding shows. And back then it was the people who were coaching were on drugs, they were on steroids. And when you're on gear, you have to diet a certain way. So I was an all natural athlete, like eating like someone who was on steroids.
Yeah.
I was severely restricting. I was doing all this. And so, and for a while, I was like, oh, this is how you get super fit. Like you just eat chicken and rice and tilapia and green beans and no fats, and you do 2 hours of cardio, and this is how you coach, and this is how you get people lean. And that was my own, like having been a trainer, but not having studied nutrition, not knowing like that will be detrimental to a lot of people's life. So thank the Lord that I did not have any clients back then.
Yeah. So that's even interesting. Yeah. Because think about like, there's so many, I mean, and again, like we're kind of getting off tangent, but that's the whole point of this. Everyone say hi, Nuggy. But there's like OBGYNs. I mean, like the whole, and this isn't throwing anybody under the bus, but I do think that sometimes like it's not unthinkable that a coach wouldn't know that a period's important when there's medical professionals who don't care and who stand on the fact that it doesn't matter even now to this day. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So you were competing, which is interesting because I told myself the lie that as long as I'm not competing or trying to be super lean, then like I'm safe. And so there's this whole category of people who haven't competed and who still get HA, but you did compete. So when did you probably think that you started to see signs of HA starting to happen before you actually lost your period? I think that's a great place to start.
Okay, so I did my first show in like 2011, and it was kind of like on my own. And I was just reading all these articles about how to diet for a show, and it was asparagus and chicken and all that. And there was like this whole, I don't know, belief, philosophy that when you lose your period, that's when you're lean. And so,
or that you're working hard enough. Like that's a sign of working hard.
yeah, well, no, for like literally when it was like, this is how you know you're show ready or you're starting to get show ready is when you don't have a period because your body fat is so low, which is not true actually. But that was the mentality. It was like, if your body fat is that low, you're not gonna have a period, which means you're probably lean enough to do a show. That's a lie. But I was like, okay. So it was almost like I was subconsciously trying to get to the point where I didn't have a cycle. So I would love it if my cycle was like 2 days. Or if it was like 5 days of super light, it was like, yes, like I'm getting lean enough. So that was sort of like through the couple of years that I did compete, it was almost like a badge of honor to not have a cycle. And if it came back, it was almost like, oh, because you're not lean in that world.
Yes. So did you lose, I mean, like you kind of talked about it getting lighter and getting lighter, and that was definitely one of the first signs because I was on the marina. And so I was like, oh, it's just getting lighter because it's just because of birth control. Oh, it's just because of this, just kind of this. But really and truly, like it was getting so light that it legit stopped, even though you're supposed to ovulate on that hormonal contraception. But so you're so right that there are signs of you losing your cycle before you actually lose your cycle because it's getting shorter, it's getting lighter, there's just changes. So did you lose your cycle your first show, or how did that manifest? So then you're like one of those people who like legit can get down there and still maintain a cycle.
Yep. But that doesn't mean that you don't have some of the symptoms or that you will not have the symptoms later, right? So like I didn't lose my period until after one of my final shows that I did. And I lost it during my prep. So my prep was like 6 months of like hardcore dieting and exercise. So an hour in the morning on the step mill, an hour of weight training at night, tilapia 5 meals a day, asparagus 5 meals a day, and half a cup of almonds. And it was just like, I did not get a cycle. And I did not get a cycle for a year or two after that either. Like it was not regular. So I completely lost my cycle. And like a lot of people, I was like, oh, well, you know, people don't get their cycles. It's not that big of a deal. That was my initial thought. It was like, whatever.
Which is interesting, which means that you would have had to have lost it earlier than I had. And I know that I was scouring like podcasts for like information on this and all, you know what I mean? Hence why Danny started like the HA podcast. But how did you learn about HA? And then how did you let's just start about that. Like, you know, like the journey of figuring out, oh, I actually have HA.
I didn't even know what that word meant. Like that was not a thing. For me, it was like what happened was I was lean and then I started to just gain weight uncontrollably. And
let's pause and talk about that. Yes, that's actually probably the only reason why I started to recover was because out of nowhere, I started gaining this weight. Obviously, we now know when your estrogen is that low for that long, everyone's like, I can just keep writing this out. And I'm like, no, you can't. There will become a day where things completely shut down and things, I think I made a post where like everything's okay until nothing's okay. So I love that you brought that up. Talk a little bit about that, because that's actually what pushed me to recover, because I was like, either way, I'm gaining weight because I can't stop it. I can't stop it. And I don't know what's going on with my body.
Precisely. So I was like back then when you were competing, there wasn't this idea of a reverse diet, which is basically you bring up your calories slowly. There wasn't the idea of like macros really, where you eat like a little bit of everything, mostly whole foods, until your body is still kind of getting that processed food that kind of helps your hormones out a little bit actually. So I was trying to stay lean after my show. And I couldn't. I could not control it. Not only because I couldn't like maintain it, but at some point binge eating became, it has to, like, psychologically, you have to start binge eating, because if you're restricting that much, your body is like, excuse me, we need to gain weight, and we're going to just force you to want to binge eat. Your animal brain is going to turn on and you will not have a choice. So I was gaining weight uncontrollably because I was starving myself, and I just couldn't, there were days where I just couldn't stop eating. And then it was like, well, I'm gaining weight, so let me go, like, no, like, let me just, go work it out. And like, let me do 15 or 20 days of like super strict. It was honestly a sick cycle. But then I was like, this is a problem. Like, this is a real, true issue, because I couldn't stop it.
Yeah, you touched on so many good points. One of that, literally, like, biologically, your body will just legit start gaining weight strictly in the lower ab area, which for women is where we hold weight anyway. So it's super apparent. But that's something that I talk about all the time, as we look at binge eating as this wild and crazy, phenomenal thing that you're like, I can't believe I'm having this massive dysfunction, when realistically, it's probably the smartest thing your body could ever do, right? It's the smartest thing your body could ever do. And you know what I mean? It makes sense that, like, because, and then, like, the reason why it's so hard for us to even kind of like think that our body's being smart is because we've been told a lie that our body can't be trusted and it doesn't know what it's doing and it's broken. Guys, this is my husband, Blake. Hi, Blake. We're doing real life TV basically right here. I'm gonna grab some nuggie. Dad. That's his. Hey, can you shut this door, please? Sorry. Real life, guys. This is this is how you do a podcast with dogs and baby. But yeah, no, seriously, it is the most logical thing. And it's wild that we've been trained to think that it's the most erratic thing that our body's doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So therefore, yeah, I feel like you were like just out there like Lone Ranger figuring this out.
It was. I was so, oh my gosh, like, people don't know this.
Girl, I shared that I was losing my hair and looking for hair plugs. All right. I shared it all. So safe place.
So distraught about the fact that I was gaining weight. And then, like, among other things, like, I was in a bunch of debt because I was paying a coach to like stay lean. That's why I moved to Korea.
Oh, okay.
I could not handle it.
You're just like out. Like, I've just like
it's in my brain. And I just thank the Lord for that, because like I didn't know why I was going to, because all this stuff was happening, and it was like, oh, I met someone I was coaching at a track camp, and this guy's like, oh, I just came back from Korea. Use my bank account. Tell me you're my wife. You can have money there. My substitute teacher had just come back from Korea. Oh, you should go teach in Korea. Then my best friend was stationed in Seoul. And I was like, all these, like, first of all, I was afraid of flying. I shared this on my Instagram a couple days ago. But I was like, I have to go to Korea. And I didn't know why consciously. But I gained 40 pounds there.
Girl, the Lord is in this all. So
that, I know. Yeah. I'm like,
yeah,
gracious. Because he was like, okay, baby, you're going to do this, and you don't have to do it in front of all these people.
Yeah. So that's why I have such compassion on people as they're looking to gain weight, because I actually moved to Texas. And when I moved to Texas, it was almost this fresh start, because nobody knew me as this super lean, fit chick, right? I didn't go to the same CrossFit gym. I wasn't in the same community. Obviously, I still had the same family, right? You know what I mean? And so I was able to there was no mountains for me to hike. I tried to join a CrossFit gym, and when you're just doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and you're just like, okay, I don't know why I'm going to stop, but I'm just going to stop doing it. So I stopped going to CrossFit, and I basically, like, the first 6 months here, like, I just like recovered, because I was like, fine, like, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? And so I do have compassion for those that are like, nope, still going to the same job, or I'm still going to the same gym, because that is tough. Because I did, like you said that you gained 40 pounds, I gained 40 pounds. And so I do think that the level of leanness that you start off with, like requires a bigger weight gain. And so
Yeah.
while I don't think everyone will need to gain 40 pounds, but if you are like ridiculously lean, you're probably going to, because there's a lot of catching up your body needs to do.
Well, and I think I actually agree with you there. And I actually think part of the problem was that I kept fighting it. And this is why when I have a client right now, I'm
Yeah.
like, stop fighting it, baby. Because if you keep doing this, you will gain 60 and 70. Stop fighting it. Just like surrender right now.
Yes.
Because I promise you the damage is going to be way less. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of my problem, is that I was fighting it for so long that it actually had to be a bigger rebound than it probably really needed to be.
Oh, 100%. Like I like Danny, like I don't like we're never like, oh, you had to gain this much, so your journey's worse. Never mind that, like it's like never that. But sometimes I'm like, excuse me, am I the only one that had to gain 40 pounds? Like, but I fought it much longer. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if you remember this, but we were like dieting in high school.
Yeah, I look back and well, because like I was so history for like everybody, like I wrestled and I needed to make weight and you ran track, right? So it's like this wasn't us going into this lifestyle wasn't like a far stretch. You know what I mean? Like, like it just wasn't a far stretch. And so like, yeah, like as I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So it's like how many years before I actually developed HA had I been dieting that, you know what I mean? So I think that's one thing that people don't take into consideration is it's not just how many years did you have HA, it's like what have you been doing before that? You know what I mean? But to your point about with the client, that's why I say, well, that's why I actually wound up like getting certified in biblical counseling. Cause I was like, look, we're going to need the Holy Spirit all up on this. You know what I mean? But cause more of, you're right. Like the tension wasn't that my husband wasn't going to love me gaining weight. That wasn't even the tension. And that wasn't what was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. The straw that was going to break the camel's back was my insanity of fighting it. Like literally, I was making myself so sick with the amount of stress that I had massive digestive issues that if I would have gone to like a doctor, I'm sure that they would have diagnosed me with some like autoimmune something because I was so stressed. Like
it is so crazy. No, yes. My doctor is awesome. She left me. She abandoned me. Now she's in private practice. She was with me during that time, and she was like, "I don't think you have an autoimmune disease." Because that's what they do. And this client that I have, they will say that you have an autoimmune disease.
So I actually have a client right now to where I kid you not, if it wasn't the prompting of like the Holy Spirit, because it's pretty ballsy to tell a client, I think you have symptoms of autoimmune, but I don't think you actually have autoimmune. And sure enough, like we've been working on stress, which I mean, that's a whole other TED talk. Like you're gonna have to come back for that. Like you're gonna have to come back for that call. But the amount of stress that she is under mimicked an autoimmune disease. And I was like, I really don't think that's it. You know what I mean? Like, so let's work to get your period back. And if I'm wrong, then like we haven't lost anything. If anything, we just gained your cycle, but her symptoms are subsiding.
I know, because so many girls who competed after me with me in the cycle, all of a sudden they have Hashimoto's or what. It's like,
oh yeah.
Like, and maybe you do. I'm not a doctor, but I also had Hashimoto's symptoms. And the minute I gained the 40 pounds and started living like a normal person and stopped being obsessed with my body and food, things are pretty normal over here.
Yeah, no, I definitely have. Yeah. That's actually what I'm seeing a lot in my clients now of like, not that I don't want them to go to the doctor and not that I'm saying I'm better than the doctor, but there is this, you're going to go to the doctor and come back with 5 like diagnoses and then having to work through that. So, well, that's a good tangent. Circling back, how did you recover? Like, where were you? I mean, like, I know that you went to Korea, you gained the 40 pounds, but where were you in that moment where you're like, I'm going to gain this weight? Like, I'm like, this is the path to healing.
Yeah. So when I was in Korea, I was listening to a ton of podcasts about, ironically, like food podcasts and like emotions and food. And I was listening to a bunch of ex-competitors like talk about their journeys. It wasn't even about the period.
Hmm.
So I knew at some point I wanted it back. I had listened to, or I watched a YouTube video of a girl who had competed, and she was like, I just want my period back. Like, I was talking to a naturopath and it's healthy. And that was kind of like a moment where I was like, I think I want my period back too. Like, I think like there's something wrong. And so I was listening to a ton of those, but I still hadn't quite, I didn't get it,
Yeah.
because this is like a spiritual thing, right? Like it's yeah. And even people who are not believers, it becomes spiritual, because there's no, anyway, no explanation. So anyway, what happened was, um, this is why I was sent to Korea. So I was walking, I was probably 190 pounds. Lord knows, like, I'm 5'3". So I was walking down the street feeling disgusting, because that's just, I'm sorry if this is like too much, but the reality is, like, you feel gross, you feel ashamed, you feel like a failure. You're just like, whose body is this, right?
Plus it
So
changes so fast, right? And so, so like with my clients, like I validate all their feelings because yeah, with that, but like it changes so fast that you almost mentally can't catch up to the weight gain. Well, I know for me, obviously I went the extreme route because I kind of knew what I was doing, but in no matter time, like gaining that much weight, it like your mind almost doesn't have enough time to catch up. And we see this with weight loss too, where people have this drastic weight loss journey. They almost don't recognize themselves in the mirror. And so that's how I know that it actually has nothing to do with weight. It has everything to do with like changes just happening so fast.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't even, it was very much out of my body. And like, I am now someone who like, I need to just be present and fully in my body and feel like, be in touch with my body. Because if I was, I probably would be going through this. But it was an out of body experience, in the sense that I was like, who are you? Like, through, so this is like, I'm walking down the street. A week earlier, I had listened to a Focus on the Family podcast, and it was with this Miss America from like 1990 or 1980 or whatever. And she was like, and they're just talking about her spiritual journey. And she goes, women think that when they get a boyfriend or when a husband or a good job, they're just going to be happy. Like, or when they have the perfect body, they're going to be happy. And when they get this, they're going to be happy. And she's like, but that's all bondage. And who the sun sets free is free indeed. And I just like, I was like, oh, that's cute. Like, my dad's a pastor. I heard that verse a million times. I kid you not. I just was like, oh, that's cute. Oh, that's so true for you. And then I just like, I was just like, next. So I'm walking down the street in Korea, and I just like, I've never had ideations before in my life. That was not something that I even thought about, but I saw a bridge, and I said to God, I was like, you can take me out right now. Like, I'm done. Like, just take me out. Like, I meant it. I meant it 100%. I was like, I cannot live like this. I can't continue to be stressed out about my body. I can't live in this body. I hate the way I look. I hate the way I feel. Take me out. Like, It's okay. Like, if you want me to go jump off that thing, I'll do it.
So go ahead.
And that verse came to my mind.
The Lord is so good, right? He's so good to minister when we're like, oh yeah, that's cute, Lord. Cute verse, cute verse.
Yep.
You know what I mean? No, I am more and more convinced, and I mean, I'm just going to share it because whoever comes up on this, that the Lord's has specifically brought them to this YouTube channel. But the more and more, like so I did I don't even know which one to call it because I didn't really get much from it. It was like a graduate study. So basically it was all the eating disorder classes that are offered, like all of them, to registered dietitians, and they only have to take one of them unless they can like do like a specialized one. And so basically like this program was that you took all of them, right? So it was almost like an add-on thing. So I took it, and when we got to the end of it, I was like, so you don't know what you're doing either. Like I felt like I walked away from being like, I spent all this money, I spent all this time. I know that there's this group of people that I need to help because they just keep coming because they always sign up for diet, diet programs. Right. And so at that time I was working with a different company. And I was like, if they're not going to go to anybody else, at least how do I not like push them along the journey even worse? Anyways, all these things. And I got to the end of it and I was like, I love you. I think you guys are great. This is nothing personal, but you don't have an answer either. Right. And then I went to like cognitive behavior training, and then I went to acceptance behavior training and all these things. Cause I was like, how do I help these people? Right. And getting to the end of it is like, there's like, you have no answer. Like you have no answer for me in how to help. I need to see these people healed. Right. Then I went through the biblical certification course, and I saw them address eating disorder as a stronghold, as bondage. And when I saw someone set free, I was like,
Yep. Yep.
and looking back at the more and more that I do this work, the more and more I'm convinced that it is a stronghold and that it is a spirit of some type. So I'm just going to put it out there. I'm just going to put it out there because the thought process just doesn't make sense. It defies all logic. And so in one sentence, we can say, I want to get pregnant. I want to recover my period. The next sentence of like, but I'm so committed to starving myself. I'm so committed to exercising when I don't want to exercise. That's bondage. I'm so committed to it, even though I don't want to do it. I'm so committed to dieting, even though I don't want to do it. I'm so committed to staying unhealthy, even though my soul's desire is to have a kid or to be healthy. Right. And so the more and more that you see this operating in the same sentence in the same time, and it's almost like a switch between like personalities, almost where I'm like, there's no way that there's nothing anyone could ever tell me that this is not bondage. And for that, I do know a person, I do know a healer, I do know someone who has something to say about that, type of thing. So it's very interesting that you had that same like experience with it, because I mean, like, I don't share that mainstream, but every private counseling client who is a believer, they will 100% be like, yeah, like you've described it perfectly. And I'm like, well, I didn't, the Lord did, but you know what I mean? Because there's think about just even the grand scheme of things of, yes, go ahead, be a believer, right? But be so distracted that like, you're not even like, you have no capability to know what God's calling is on your life. And one of the things that kind of gets me fired up about my own experience is that even though I felt like I was super vigilant about it, there's no way that the temple didn't become an idol.
That's what I was going to say is like, I'm going to say this, and I've never said this in public before.
Let's do it.
Eating disorders, including are the ultimate sin of narcissism. They are the ultimate self-idolization and a broken first commandment.
Yeah, 100%. And what's tricky about it is that you don't start down that road thinking like, I'm a narcissist, you know what I mean? Or this is a narcissistic tendency. But when you objectively remove yourself and think about how much control it has over my life and my feelings, and it dictates every part of my day, you're like, oh, I don't know if there's a difference.
And you love yourself first above all things instead of the Lord your God, which is the greatest commandment.
Yeah.
That's the fact. Like, hands down, there were multiple days where I chose to exercise over go to church. Hands down. So it is bondage, because you are relying on yourself to save yourself. Even as a believer, like, you're relying on yourself to save yourself. Like, there's no trust and no surrender in.
Oh, yes.
And just not. And I know, and like, when people will ask me, well, what, I did do therapy. I went to therapy.
Yeah.
That was not it.
Yeah.
It was that moment when the Holy Spirit was like, listen, you're obsessed with yourself. You are your own idol. And So you want to be obsessed with yourself? I'm gonna do you one better. Here's this eating disorder that you have. Here's your not having a period. Now come back to me when you're tired.
Well,
And
in like, so this is why I was like, this conversation is gonna be so good, because I know that you are in the word of the word, you are flowing in it. And this isn't a, well, fine, from God, like this isn't a smiting, but the word does say that, like, whenever you resist him so much that he will give you over to your desires. And so we have firsthand evidence that being given over to this desire did not produce what it said it would. And like the visual that I get is that like you're at the end of this rabbit hole, like this actual rabbit hole, and you're like hoping that there's like another way to break through like the tunnel, and it's like there's nothing.
And Jesus is like, and I told you so. Now I know you're tired and heavy lifting, and so here.
Yeah, and so I do think that you're so right of the, like, you're looking for yourself to save yourself, because the answer to this is surrender, right? Not surrender to ourselves, but surrender to God. And there's so much resistance to that, right? And Joanne and I are not talking at you. We are talking with you, because this was us.
And I don't think I'm
Yeah.
better than anybody else, because of like I weep when my clients
Mm-hmm.
this, because
Yeah.
I'm so emotional. I know, because I just know like how heavy, like
Mm-hmm.
to just like, why do you have all that on your brain? Like, you can give this up to God right now, and I know it's so hard. I get it, but I'm like, there's rest on the other side of this. I promise you, there is
Yeah.
the other side of this, and it's so like I've never wanted to not live, and I know, and and so I'm there with my clients when they're like, I just can't, like they think there's no answer. I just got like I was talking to a new like person yesterday, and I said, you don't believe
Mm.
like that this can happen, and she goes, I don't. And I'm like, I know, I remember what that was like to be like, this is it. Like there's
Yeah.
no way I'm ever gonna live like normally. I know. And so when I speak passionately, it's not because I'm like, I just want you to get to the end of yourself and be like, okay, Lord, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm ready to just do it, because I that's what I want for every woman who's going through this, is just to get there. And I know you
Oh,
can't.
100%. And I completely like relate with you, because I think like one of my newer clients was on a discovery call, and they're like, okay, well, I'll work on a period up with Ashley. And she's like, she's so intense. I'm like, no, I intensely love you. You know what I mean? Like, no, I intensely love you. And because like I do know what this feels like, right? And it does feel like you know, the Lord just dropped into my mind of like, it's of the enemy when there's so much confusion around it, because God is not a God of confusion. And so when I look back at that time in my life, it was almost like the swirling of like, I couldn't see it. And I feel like I'm a pretty solid person, right? And so if I can't see up from down, then I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like I've really been rocked. Like I've been rocked to the core.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So you had that moment, and when were you like, I'm just going to let this go. Like, I'm going to let this go, and I'm gonna let my body just be.
It was literally that day. I was like, I had the verse, I cried probably, I think I wept. I use the term because I'm not joking, like,
Yeah.
because I was like, give it up. Give it up. Give up the fact that you're the fit person. Give up
Yeah.
the fact that you're, lean. Give up the fact that you're this like beacon of health, and like give it up. Give up that identity, just because you have to grieve that person.
Yeah.
Because even when you do, because like I do want people to know that like you can get back to like healthy, right? Like you're not gonna always, I wasn't always gonna be, at an unhealthy weight, because truly that was obesity for me, and that's not
Yeah.
healthy either. But when you come back to that, it's not gonna be the same person. So I had to grieve who I was, who I thought I was, I switch my identity essentially, because I'm like, your identity is not in your body. Your identity is not in what you do unless it's for the Lord. So
Yeah.
you don't, and so it was a process of letting all of that go, but it was easier because I was like, Who the sun sets free is free indeed. Is free.
I'm
Like,
free. I'm free. Just double checking, but I am free.
and it's not like I didn't have moments. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like it was like this straight road,
Mhm.
right? When I came back from Korea, I tried to, because I was back in the environment that I had, escaped, I tried to do that more. I tried to still go back into like exercising and all that stuff, but it just, my body still wouldn't do it. And I just was like, just had to accept, that was just going to be the journey for a while. But it took a while. It took me that day, I kind of was like, okay with it. But I had my ups and downs. I think
Yeah.
you're not going to just one day turn around and be like, nope, never want to, you know, think about myself as a fit person again. Never want to, and I had gotten my period too. I remember I called my mom in Korea right before I came home because I was like, I got my period. And I was like so happy. Mind you, I was like looking like a blimp to myself. I was like, but I was like, it's weird
Yeah.
that it's way more important to me now than being lean.
And so I love that you share that because, and like, I'm also like 5'3" on a good day. Uh, and I did have to get up to like 183. So I had gone from like, so like at my leanest. And so like, I like to share numbers because even at my leanest, my doctors didn't think I had HA because I wasn't like 100 pounds. Right. So I was like 135, 137 of absolute lean.
That's you and I have the same body type
Yeah.
because I am almost like I will almost lose a period at 135.
Oh, no doubt. Right. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, to the point where I don't even know if I could actually get back down there. I actually think that like 165, which is what I'm at now, or like 155 is probably like the range, but any lower, but long story short, that I was still in the overweight category at 145 because we're so short and carry so much muscle that like at 145, I was overweight. So for me, I hit the obesity range, but that's what it took for me to heal. And that was so counterintuitive that my body would turn back on while I was in obesity.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that was a tough pill to swallow because I'm like, what do you mean that this is me at my healthiest, right? I will say, like everyone else's journey, like because I'm like 2 years like removed, I had a baby, got pregnant, had a baby, did all that, and got my cycle back. That like my body is finding its set point without me dieting or extreme exercising, and it's one of those things where so one thing that I talk to my clients a lot about is like, sure, you could try to lose weight. I'm going to entertain this for you, but the closer you do it to recovering, the more your body is going to come back with resistance. If your body feels like you are not where it has to be, the weight will come off. And I'm not saying that that should be the end goal, because the end goal specifically for my clients is getting their period back and then being able to get pregnant. But it's one of those things of like, but if you poke this bear, it will fight you.
Mm-hmm.
It will 1000% fight you, right? Meaning that like, if like we try to build normal habits, normal eating habits, normal movement habits, I think you're going to be surprised on where your body winds up and it's going to be at a healthier place. And no, your overshoot weight is most likely never going to be where people end up, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
so I know that will probably piss off some of the community, and that's okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've already pissed off a few people, but I think it's really hard to sit there and be like, oh, you at your most uncomfortablest, you need to be okay with staying there.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's not, but to tack that on to the mental gymnastics of healing is just such a big ask that I'm like, why don't we circle back around to that, to wherever your body is healed and you're acting normal, eating, working out, and then let's see what your body does then. And then let's revisit this. And if this is an area that we have to work on to accept, then fine. But if you poke this bear, it's going to fight you. You know what I mean?
Yep, it's true. So when women come to me for fitness and nutrition, I'm like, if they're on 1,500 calories, I'm like, nope, we're going to reverse diet because I'm not playing this game with your metabolism. I'm just like, we're not doing that over here. And actually when I started to lose weight, I hired a coach and she had me on 3 days of cardio, 10 minutes
Yeah.
of hit.
Yeah.
That's because you should be able to, when you're at your highest metabolic rate, you should be able to start to move. And I was eating, froyo and like all of the things. I wasn't on some like strict plan. It was just like, here are your macros, do cardio 3 times a week for 10 minutes, 10 minutes a hit. That's it. And you lift weights. And that was actually a part of, I had saw a holistic nutrition guy and he was like, stop exercising. He was like, he's like, if you want to walk, because that's parasympathetic, that's good for your body. But he's like, all this cardio and crazy workouts, he's like, stop doing that. And the sooner I did that, the better but yes, I gained weight, but I feel like that's why my recovery was a little bit faster, was because I just obeyed.
Yeah. Well, so like there's so much to that, to where like one of the ways that I like to break it up is like there's a season of healing and then there's a season of rebuilding. And if you try to jump the gun and you try to rebuild whenever you need to heal, you're just going to piss off your body.
Yep.
So this has been so good. Like, I didn't know where this conversation was going to go. And I got a few more questions for you, but this has just been so good. So good. Okay. So for you, what was the hardest part of your HA like recovery? Like, you didn't know that you're recovering from HA, but like you were doing it. So what was like, whether it was mentally, physically, spiritually, like what was like the hardest part where you're like, this is my tension point?
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely like believing that it was possible. Because when you're in that state, the only thing you can think about is, I don't want to gain weight. I don't want to look bad. I don't want and believing that like people are still going to love you. 30 pounds heavier if they're real people, right? Like some of these people are going to fall by the wayside, and thank God, because they deselected themselves.
Yeah.
But people are going to love you anyway. And you don't, that is not like, you can let all that go and you'll recover. Like you don't have to be that person. You have to believe that it's possible and believe that it's okay. And it took me a long time to believe it. And actually, I told you what someone told me, because she said to me, I know you don't think you're ever going to be able to stop thinking about food and exercise and your body. But she's like, I promise you it's possible, because she had competed.
Yeah. It's totally like one of those things of, I was talking to a client today and I was like, what if we just entertain the idea that your worth was never in your body? Like, I know that sounds simple, but like, it's almost like living this lie that you didn't know that you were living. Like, what if it never actually had anything to do about it and people actually just loved you? But you think people love you because of the way you look or what you represent to them, Like, what if that was never actually it? You know what I mean? And so like, you're killing yourself for something that was never really the thing.
And spiritually, I used to say this on my Instagram profile all the time. There's no scale in heaven. Like the Lord, at least not a body scale in heaven.
Yeah.
So you're out here as a believer. Like when I have clients who are believers, we're out here concerned about that. But the Lord's like, okay, but what's going on in your heart?
Yeah.
And
yeah. I was talking to somebody and I was like, I'm not going to give you some juju body image thing because that all comes from the secular world and clearly it's not working, right? So what I'm going to give you is something that I'm hearing from the Lord. I I hear him inviting you to look at your body as a vehicle to do the things that he's called you to do, rather than look at your body as the thing to do. Like, do you think that the Lord has called you to have the most epic body? Or do you think that the Lord has called you to steward your body so that it is a vehicle to do what he has for you to do, right? And I think that right there, for any believer, you're like, oh, I can see clearly now, because like, oh, my priorities are in order, right? That like, again, what if your body was solely meant to be the vehicle to reflect his glory, not to be the glory?
correct.
Right? To where you're like, oh, hot dang.
That's a word, because it's like, and what I love, okay, I'm a firm believer that HA comes at all spectrums of the eating disorder because
Oh, yes.
I firmly, because I had anorexia at one point too, right? Like I had them both. So I was on both ends. So I know that they're the same thing. And the reason why I'm saying that is when I talk to my clients, the same thing you're saying, I'm like, if your body is meant to glorify God and you're meant to take care of your vessel, neither one of these things is good.
Yeah.
Both of these things are damage.
But are they? Yeah. And they're both distractions, right? Like they're both such heavily distractions.
Either way, if you're eating your emotions, where's the Lord in that?
Yeah. Like process.
Yes.
Yeah, process with the Lord. Yeah.
Exactly. Where is it? Or if you're eating because you're stressed out, oh, so we really don't trust God. Like we'll go stand out on our 5-story balcony and trust that cement. But then when you feel scary, you'll go like, stop. And I say this because it's me. Like that was me. And this is I say this to myself. Like, really? You can go stand out there?
Yeah.
But you won't. Okay.
Yeah.
Like your problem. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So on that, what areas do you think that you've grown the most spiritually, like through this journey that you were like, take me out, Lord? You're like taking me out. But now like we look back and we're like, yeah, Lord, there's some fruit in that. You know what I mean? Like, where do you think you've grown the most?
That is such a hard question because I don't, my whole being, like, I think that this is all like sanctification, right? Like this is all like,
yes,
just more and more and more and more surrender and more.
Oh, that's so good.
That's all. I mean, it produced that. It produced my business where I'm like, but I'm thinking like, I think this is what God had always meant for me to do for him. And so this whole journey was like, I'm shaping you and molding you, the clay, the potter, the whole thing. And now your job is to like show other women what I can do, what he can do for them through your story, which is so shameful and embarrassing. And you're going through all this pain. And like, again, everything works out for my good and his glory. So I'm like, okay, I think just the whole process has just been sanctification. And the further and further I remove myself from my body, the better life gets.
Yeah. Like, oh, that's so good. We're gonna, that's good.
It's like the further, I mean, okay, I'm talking a lot. I'm really sorry.
No, please keep going.
So much of the work that I do is around mindful eating and stress eating and emotional eating, because that is actually what most of my clients are struggling with, whether it's restriction or overeating. You cannot selectively numb emotions.
Yes, Brene Brown. Yes.
And if you're numbing one, you're numbing, so you're never actually happy.
Yes.
That is not joy.
Yeah.
You only feel this, which is like
that line.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like I experience the glory of God at like a different level.
Yes.
Because I can be so like, I'm genuinely happy. And I was, okay, if you want to like, let's go ahead and do a little introspection. I was not happy. I was smiling in pictures. I was not happy. There was no joy in the Lord. There was no joy, sweetie, no joy. And now I'm like, wow, like I experienced the world in Technicolor. Like I get all the ups and all the downs. And I'm like, I would rather feel despair from the bottom of the pit and also experience the joy of the Lord than ever be like this again, because that's when I wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You said so many good things that yes. So one of the things that really struck a nerve was when you said that this has been like a season of surrender, like, you know what I mean? And so the Lord had just popped in as like, I don't think I would hear him as much in my sessions or just in everyday life or to even minister to anybody if like he wouldn't have broken me of not surrendering, to where now it's like giving up that bondage is way more than just my period, way more than just my business. It's like I consistently hear from him because I have had to been beaten down and learn a deeper level of surrender of what I was living previously. And the beautiful thing is that that thing will just keep getting deeper and, and just keep getting deeper. And so I guess the encouragement would be like, you don't know what surrender will unlock for you.
You don't know.
Like, you know what I mean? Like gifts, like, and just all the things like you actually don't know what surrendering will unlock for you.
No, if you would have told me, 5 years ago, and I'm sure you could say the same thing. Oh yeah, like this is what God has in store for you, and it's not even about me more so than it is like this is what you're supposed to be doing for His glory.
Mhm.
I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah, I don't even like kids. And now I like Nuggy, you know what I mean? But like fertility, like that's never been like this oohing and awing from my heart. But now I'm totally into it because I'm like, absolutely not. I actually do know the healer and I do know that this is, you know what I mean? So it's not even that like, I guess I love the science because I'm an undercover nerd, but like it's never been about the outcome. It's been about like, but I know what the Lord will produce in you through this. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And it's like unlock and like for people to just see more of Him in their lives, especially my clients who are believers. I'm like, I know you're a believer. I know, but I'm telling you right now, when you
Mhm.
like, there is just abundance in Him on the other
Yeah.
side, not even monetarily. I'm not talking about money
Yeah.
at all. Just
No.
I'm talking about spiritually on the other side of this. Like there is a life you didn't know, like the way we were meant to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And that like we actually, get closer and closer to that. The more and
yeah,
more we surrender, the more, 1000%. So I think that we kind of talked about this, but what was the hardest thing to let go of during your journey? Like, I know that you kind of touched on it. Like, was it like seeing people? Was it the fit girl identity? One of the things I've uncovered with my clients is I wonder if it's so hard because we almost do it for the random stranger that we don't even know their name just to get the external applaud from them. That we're like, yeah, I know my mom loves me, so she don't care. I know my husband loves me, so I know that he doesn't care. Well, yes, I know that my real friends are my real friends, and so like we say yes, yes, yes to all this. I'm like, so who am I performing for? Is it that random compliment from a stranger that I don't want to give up?
yeah. That's good. I don't know that I ever, yeah, I don't know that it was this, it wasn't, it wouldn't have been the stranger. That's always a hard question because my top of the head answer is always like, I just had to give up who I thought I was,
Ah,
because okay, oh man, I don't know how to not talk a lot.
no, go for it, girl. Go for it
So,
because it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm so pumped that we got on this call.
I um I didn't like so y'all know I'm not a self-love, maybe you don't. I do not believe in self-love in that way. Like
Yeah.
I'll use the term flippantly, but I do not believe you can self-love yourself into anything. The
Okay.
reason why we in this whole situation is because I was self-loving myself to death. Um, but I think for me, I know you asked me what I had to give up, but what I had to accept
Okay, yeah, go that way.
was like, who am I? Like, okay, God, uh, I gotta make a whole video about this because the way I grew up and all this other stuff. But so many parts of me that were stifled, I don't think it was intentional. I
Yeah.
have a loving, crazy Christian, loving home, but there were so many parts of me that were stifled that I was trying to um, cover up with that fit girl. Like
Mhm.
that's like the thing. But I had to be like, okay, who am I when all of that is gone?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that I didn't
Yeah.
like myself. I didn't what the only thing and I probably low key thought that people liked me because I was fit because I had never liked myself.
Mm-hmm.
Someone always says, I don't even know who says it. It's like, you don't have to love yourself, but you do have to like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because it's like, yeah, there's a piece in just knowing the attributes that God gave to you and being okay with them, and not even physically. I'm like,
Yeah.
who am
Yeah.
I? What? Like Jesus's tax keeper. Her name was Joanna, I believe. I was like, you know, I mean, and I say that because I'm like, okay, I was trying to like find, that was one of the things I figured out. I was like, okay, who am I? Like, what does the Bible say my name means? Like, what is all this stuff? Because I was like, who am I
Yeah.
outside of my body that I can like? Because if I like who I am outside of my body, then why does it matter if I'm 180 pounds?
Yes. So, gosh, guys, this wasn't staged. Like, this is just the Lord, and this is just the journey. But I say all the time of everyone has to go through this. It's just women who are going through HA end up having to have this midlife crisis sooner than other people, but nobody's exempt. Everybody will come to this question. Everybody will have this reckoning. Everybody is going to be invited to this place of reconciliation of what they think and what the Lord says and how it doesn't line up. Right. And so it's one of those things where it's like, nobody gets to escape this. And if you think somebody has, they're lying to you. Everybody has to do this, right? Like everybody.
Yes. And it's so funny because I affectionately call my Korea stage my quarter life crisis. I was 25.
See, I mean, 100%. Like, I'm like, everybody has this midlife crisis. HH just brings it like
Quicker.
very, very soon.
And I'm
Very,
like,
yeah.
God, thank
Yeah.
God, I'm not trying to have that when I'm 50. Like, thank you, Lord.
Yeah. I mean, because
blessing.
yeah, I mean, in real talk, and nothing against anybody who's having a real midlife crisis, but think about that's a lot of years of stubbornness that's going to have to fall. And so at this point, I feel like the Lord is like, that's going to be a really big wall. We should probably just take that down now. We should probably just handle that right now because it's going to get real ugly if we wait till 50.
Yes.
It's going to get bad.
And it's hard. Like, I don't want to pretend like this all happened. Like, one thing I told my client was it took me 5 years probably after I came back from Korea, 5 years mentally
Yes.
get to a place where I'm like, okay. And now it feels like it hasn't been that long because it feels like it happened so quickly.
I was just talking to my friend about that, but when like the Lord heals, so you know, like we counsel for like a ministry, but like when the Lord heals, sometimes it's like, oh, did that happen to me? Like it feels so distant.
Yep.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead. But yes, so many good things.
Turn around and you're like, oh, like I can have a scoop of ice cream and it's not going to be a problem. And oh, I can, just live my life and I'm not thinking about my body. Or oh, like it's just this. It was like this weird thing, but it took time. Like it took a lot of sanctification, truly, and just like more and more surrender. So I don't want to pretend like it's overnight, like that. It just
Oh yeah.
It definitely took some time, and it took a lot of just like mistakes too, right? But
Oh, 1000%. Girl, I got my cycle back and then try to diet the very next cycle. And like,
of course, yeah,
correct.
correct.
I mean, like like we all do it. Like, like we all do it. But I love that you said 5 years because I actually was just talking to another member and like I was like, I don't know why the Lord had put it in my heart, but it was like, I want a 5-year goal. Like from now to 5 years, because the problem was that I kept living for the short-term goal. Like I'm gonna be lean at this event, being a lean at this event, and then being a lean at this, and then that just wanted to be year round and just wanted to be in 2 years, wanted to be in 3 years, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, where do I want to be in 5 years? Like, where do I want to be back to training in 5 years. I want to be back to the capacity. I want to have food freedom. I want to be able to rest. I want to be like not preoccupied so that I can actually, if like Nuggy's losing her mind and we don't get to get on a workout, I don't lose my shiz. Right. So it's like, there's just so many things that I'm like 5 years, like that's the goal, Lord, that in 5 years. And so I do think that we need so much time hormonally restored. And then there's even signs about the brain. Like, I don't think you're going to ever have positive body image. Not that I believe in that, but that's a whole other thing that we're going to bring you back on for without the hormones. So
Yes.
Not like, that's such an impossible ask, that that's just as impossible as me trying to live these beauty standards. So why am I going to try to trade one impossible standard for another impossible standard? But so I love that you said 5 years. Give your body just 5 years of chill and see where you're at mentally. And if you really do hate the way you look,
Yes.
you know what
Oh,
I mean?
you just said so much there, because I know it's just, I know you, that self-love, body positivity, honey, you hate yourself and love yourself at the same time. You can't do that. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's a cycle of like self-defeating. You're trying to fix a physical problem with a spiritual problem with a physical answer, like, like, and
Yeah.
it's,
So
yeah.
so like someone has said this about worth, right? Because because I feel like the Lord's called me in worth, identity, and validation. Like I'm going to sing that to the cows come home. And someone was saying that self-worth, right? Because think about, in a like secular world, they can't answer that, right? So I'm just like, how is this going to end up, right? How are you going to circle this back around? And so like the biblical answer, which I just heard recently, I'm like, bingo, is that my worth isn't what I think of myself. The worth is the fact that like God from heaven left heaven and died for me. So he deemed me worthy. And because that's stable, I'm stable. And my worth isn't actually up to, like, I'm not sitting here trying to conjure up self-worth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for me to conjure up. It's not for me to create. It's not for me to determine. Right. And so Jackie Hill Perry, which I love her, she's always like, are you the creation or are you trying to act like the creator? And I was like,
Yeah.
Lord,
Yeah.
that just torched me, right? Because whenever we are in this HA cycle, we have left our position as the creation and we have said, I'm the creator.
Yep. Yep. And that's this whole self-worth, self-love. It's like, I'm the creator and I can fix this and I
can literally create and chisel my body until I'm happy.
And that's what's going to be the thing that makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the thing, and you know what's crazy?
I know we're going to lose like a bazillion followers after this, but it's good. It's so good. It's gonna
like, you got down there and you still hated yourself.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things we had an event today and it was, she was saying that HA actually never delivers. It never delivers.
That perfect body is not Jesus.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, girl, okay, I'm about to get like just smoked in this thing. Last question, or else we just gonna be both out on the floor. I know. What was one of the area that the Lord wanted to address during your HA journey that you're like, this right now, you want to talk about this right now? Out of all this that's going on, you want to talk about this. And it could be good. It could be bad because, the Lord isn't just like fire, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, to say that he didn't like reveal gifts and things like in the midst of it would be a flat out lie. Yeah. Rather, I appreciated it then is a whole other story. But like, what is something that the Lord was like, I want to talk about this. And you're like, right now in the middle of my struggle, are you even paying attention? Like,
oh man, I can't even, I feel like everything was all this. It was like all the same thing at once, but
happens to me too.
This okay, I need to gather my words. And this all kind of ties back to it anyway, but the workaholicism and oh man.
Yeah.
And okay. I'm gonna just try and be succinct. Holy Spirit, help me be succinct. Okay. Yeah. Part of that workaholicism is why I got to where I got in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. It's, oh no, I'm gonna work this to death. I'm gonna work that cardio to death. I'm gonna work strength to death. I'm gonna work that diet to death. I'm gonna work myself to death working just working.
Yeah.
And the Lord was like, you have 16 times less testosterone than a man. So all this stuff you're doing, who are you trying to be? Like, what are you trying? Like, rest.
Yes.
And I say that because we don't realize that even the workaholicism will actually give you HA.
Oh, 100%, 1000%.
And I firmly believe, and this is what and I was like, this is so controversial. I don't think people are ready to hear this. But like, I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
We're different.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's okay if I don't work out like a man. And it's okay if I don't diet like a man.
Like my worth isn't based on measuring up to a man. Like I'm in a whole other league, people. Like that's not even on. Yeah. So when the Lord just brought to my mind, go ahead.
Like my next workshop, I want to talk about that because I don't know if it was the competing specifically. I think it was my whole life.
Oh, 1000%.
Lifestyle of this like grind, and no surrender. Like, and I say that as a woman, like part of that was like God was like, you're a woman, so you're different. Like accept that you're different from men, which is a whole nother thing that like I've had to just go through. And not that I think I'm a man, like it's not, it's a whole other, there's a whole
what is like, you know, like what does competitive or what does driven look like in my form? So yeah, so 1000%, I can relate to you to where what the Lord had to rid me of was that I was like, I will push anything until it breaks, but I won't break. And so if it was like, well, I just need to diet harder, I can do that. I won't ever give up. Right. To where the Lord really had to refine. And so part of that's definitely growing up, but also, and that's a lot of like environmental things. No doubt.
Yeah, it was totally environmental.
Yeah. But I didn't know that. I thought I had addressed it because I was like, that's not who I want to be in my marriage. Like, I don't want to be someone who cuts off someone's balls and puts them in the purse and is proud about it. Like, I didn't want to be that kind of wife. Right. So you're like, I needed a whole deliverance of that.
Correct. Oh my gosh. We have to have a conversation about this.
Yeah. Can you tell that we grew up in the same area? Anyways. Right. So I was like, well, that's not the wife that I want to be. But I was like, okay, well, I'll just channel that into other areas of my life. And so so it was this whole thing. And so again, the Lord just dropping these verses in of like, where like the Egyptians were freed from their bondage, but they did not enter his rest. And so you're not in the promised land. You're not in bondage anymore, but you're not in his rest. And so as I go through the Old Testament and stuff like that, where like the Lord was spicy serious about like the Sabbath, right? I mean, but like there was such great reward, like even like the Jubilee year, like, you know, just all these things. But like the Lord is so serious about rest. And we see that as such an insult. Like, Lord, why does your creation see rest as an insult when like you deem this good? So I'm sure the Lord is still refining that, because like, I didn't know that before I just said it. So the Lord is good, but it's like one of those things of like, if I believe that the Lord is good, and if I believe that he gives good gifts, then I need to come into alignment that he has called me to rest, seasons of rest, daily rest, resting in him. And if I'm sitting here be like, rain check, Lord, you know what I mean? Like, am I surprised that it's ended this way?
Yes. And it's like, that concept of rest is now a theme in my coaching programs, because back to the testosterone, because I do not have as much testosterone as a man, and as a train, like I actually have to people laugh at my naps. No, baby, I'm napping because I need it.
Yeah.
Not because I'm like don't have enough calories. It's like, I just need rest and I'm okay. It's like
honoring.
Yes.
Rest. Like that's a daily practice. So whether energy or not, it's a it's a practice, like it's a weekly practice. And it's one of those things of, is it possibly a form of submission?
Yes, because
You know what
it's
I mean? Like,
oh, I'm gonna do this in my house, because like you said, you're channeling it in other ways. But it's like my dad used to say, oh, I hate when he's right.
you're gonna call him and be like, Daddy, you were right. So I was thinking about
I always have to tell him that. I'm like, man, he was like, are you working just to be working, or are you working because you need it?
I didn't ask your opinion, Daddy.
But it was, I'm just moving to be moving. I'm just doing this to be doing this.
That's so common. And that's the biggest hurdle that I see with a lot of people in HA recovery, is like, they don't even know why they're moving. They don't know. So again, like, you don't even know why you can't sit down. You don't know why you can't sit down and like relax with your kid, right? And so I'm not saying that I'm here. I'm not saying that I am here. What I am saying is that I recognize that there are areas of reconciliation. And so when I feel that agitation because Nuggie isn't moving to the schedule of the day, or things are getting out of place, it's like, okay, but why am I pushing so hard? Why am I pushing so right now, even me, like, I'm not full-time right now because of Nuggie, and I thought that she was going to be in daycare by 1. Now it's September, and I'm like, I didn't plan that. And so the Lord is consistently remind me that if you, and this is a little bit controversial, and I haven't exactly fleshed this out, but I'm a little bit confident of this. He was like, if like you are not content in the season that you're in right now, could it possibly be that you are missing it?
Oh, 500%. When I was telling you about living life, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Like being present in the moment and being like, thank you, God, for where I am right now. You are absolutely missing the moment. And is it quite possibly another distraction aside from exercise? Now it's what's next.
Totally.
Now it's, oh, what should I be doing? It's all this like anxious energy of, oh, I need to be doing this. I'm like, we're still not trusting the Lord though. We're still.
Yeah, because think about it, because then that ties into validation that, well, I've recovered. So why do I not have a business that I'm so stacked that I can't handle it, right? Or now that I have a mom, like, am I a successful mom if I'm not fully stacked? And just like all these things where I'm like, no, absolutely not. So again, it's like, it's like walking out your healing is this constant daily thing of like, all right, I am so fussy in my skin, and there's nothing wrong with my skin, but I'm fussy because I want to be somewhere where I'm not right now. But that's not what the Lord has put in my place today. You know what I mean? So yeah. Oh, girl, this conversation, so clearly I'm gonna have to just schedule you for like another one, because we can clearly go all day with this. But I am just praying that I know that the Lord will minister to whoever watches this. And if you feel like some of these words cut, please know that we felt it too. We feel it too. If you feel like the Lord is sandpapering you, welcome. Yeah.
He's
So where can people find you? Like your Instagram, your website, tell people.
Okay, yeah. So on Instagram, I am _coach.joe. My website is flourishing.com. Yeah. And then my YouTube channel is Fit and Flourishing. Or Fit and Flourishing. So yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I'm probably going to get this up tomorrow. Low production, high output.
I love that. No, I love that. I love that. I love that. That's how I am with my videos, honestly.
Like, I'm going to be editing. I'm chasing a toddler. Like no.
It's quality. The right people will find it. But thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I'm so glad we got to chat. And I just hope people, are blessed by this. And the Lord's doing a work, man.
Quick work. Yeah. All right.